Good evening to you. Tonight we're talking about Windbound, a passionate indie game made by 5 Live Studios in August of 2020. I was surprised to find that on Steam it heralded a mixed review standard. Now that might not sound bad if you're not too familiar with Steam, however mixed reviews are usually reserved for such titles as Call of Duty Infinite Warfare and, I don't know, a dating sim where you try to bed a female Cthulhu. Oh wait, no, sorry, that one is very positive. Right, yeah. So, what exactly did Windbound do to earn such an unremarkable title, and is it deserved? I played 25 hours of Windbound within the first week I purchased it, and completed the game on my third playthrough, utilising only the basic spear, the grass sling, and wooden bow and arrows. These weapons break after roughly 15 to 20 attacks, and are the weakest weapons in the game. So I've had enough experience within the game to understand a lot of its internal machinations. Surely the best selling point of this game, which is terribly undersold, is the combat. While the game is a survival island hopping game, the existence of hunger and sailing is honestly minor, and stands in as mere secondary obstacles. Now, the combat definitely isn't perfect, and most enemies' attacks can be categorized into a close swipe, a lunge, and occasionally a ranged attack. The ranged attack is always the hardest to counter, and in boss fights summon additional enemies, which makes the fight grossly unfair. This tends to cause you to play solely close combat, as you can easily tailor fights this way to practically disable the opponent's stronger attacks. While this could be described as learning enemy attack patterns, it's more akin to exploiting enemies and forcing them to attack for an easy counter. Now, please don't mistake my love for the combat, I thoroughly enjoyed it. Whether on easy or hard mode, it was always engaging and fun, and it was important to learn when a fight was a lost cause, any fight against forsaken enemies, for example. Speaking of the combat, I think segues into why the game is taken so poorly: the difficulties. In Easy, you keep your boat and stay in your current chapter upon death. This means returning to the start of chapter 1, 2, 3, 4, or 5. And Hard mode. You lose everything besides 7 held items and return to chapter 1. Now, when posed with these two difficulties, most people will choose the harder, as it's usually the better and more legitimate experience. But even after 3 playthroughs, I would never recommend Hard mode. You can of course Alt F4 upon death to easily return to your last save point, and this is the only way to stay your sanity if playing on the harder difficulty. The bugs that exist within the game are usually down to strange geometry, in a very vast game, which is nothing out of the ordinary, but the several scarce bugs that are present are severe. From being unable to lock on to not being able to attack, they usually tend to affect the combat, and the game has, at times, infuriated me. While these bugs are small and insignificant, they can really impact your playthrough, especially if you're playing on harder difficulties. A lot of the atmosphere within Windbound lends itself to the story of the game. The story is elementary, but engaging, and told entirely through the cryptic riddles of the damned, and wall murals, which I love solely as this would have been a very time-accurate method of storytelling. Unfortunately, walking close to the murals presents text that explains the story, which can ruin the kind of subtle immersion, but it isn't a huge drawback. Overall, I loved the art style, the limited game mechanics, and the world of Windbound. The continuous mood of the game is set by Xander Hulme's beautiful score, and never fails. The tribal and thunderous music of the boss fights falls way to the soft and subtle score as you flow over the deep blue waves. This soft medley crashes with the sound of thunder and flawlessly gives way to the epic version of fundamentally the same song. But as the waves of the storm break over and your boat teeters left to right, the music perfects the treachery with a score that's used sparingly enough to be enjoyable as a compromise for your less than perfect situation. I found my time in Windbound was worthwhile, and I don't regret playing through it one bit. I must say, I really wish the game received more recognition, as the main composer of music, Xander Hulme, has less than double my own YouTube subscribers, just to put that into perspective. Finally, I am looking to implement a 15-part review system, which will be demonstrated here. Each point has a value from 0.0 to 1.0. It is still under review, but it should be somewhat effective for now at least. Achievements. Unfortunately, even though I spent hours towards achieving the difficult Steam achievements, I was rewarded with less than half of them. Using the weakest weapons, being a carnivore in a playthrough and a vegetarian in the next, gave me nothing, which was rather upsetting. 0.2. Art style. Similar to games such as modern Nintendo games, there is a heavy emphasis on animation here. It's not an art style that I find very unique or appealing, but it's still not bad, I can't complain. 0.5. Atmosphere. Windbound has one of the best atmospheres I've seen in any modern game, where there are constant changes of scenery, from deserts to swamps to an eldritch limbo. This creates in itself a whole world of wonder. I could see any screenshot from the game and be dragged back into the atmosphere presented with it, which just speaks to how effective this atmosphere is built within the world. 1. Completionist friendly. While every island has either a blessing, main objective, or special gem, this is all RNG. Coupled with the imperfect Steam achievements, there really is no point trying to complete this game. There are no in-game achievements or in-game objectives, and it just falls short in this point. 0.1. Controls. The controls are very basic. They're not entirely fleshed out and not complex, but they tend to work and aren't difficult to learn. There's nothing really to say here. 0.4. Emotional value. I loved how the emotions for this game come primarily from the soundtrack, and doesn't rely on dialogue to convey this. Sailing along usually doesn't become monotonous, and can distract from the task at hand merely from the vibes of the game. The ending especially gave me chills, which is the highest praise I can give to any piece of media. 0.7. Fun. While the game is fun once you learn it, it is equal parts aggravating, and can cause several rage quits in a few hours of game time, easily. It's quite balanced, and that's why I'd have to give it a 0.5. Colours. The game is beautiful, and the colours blend together wonderfully in all parts of the world, whether on a forsaken shore or the skeleton of an ancient god. The colours are never lost, nor washed out, which assures the continuous high standards of the game. 0.8. Originality. I find that the game derives a lot from other media, such as Zelda or other similar survival games. There is no scarcity of survival monster hunting games with hunger, parries, weapon durability, etc, etc, etc. However, the story is unique enough to put it above a few similar titles for me, personally. 0.3. Replayability. Nothing really changes between multiple playthroughs, besides the spawn points of the shell towers. Again, coupled by the broken achievements, I found replayability to be severely reduced, in a really big way. 0.1. Rewards for exploration. As every island in the game rewards you, and killing each different enemy gives new items that paves the way forward for new tools, new resources, new weapons and boat components and storage, and huge quality of life improvements, Windbound perfectly balanced rewards for exploration and lacking difficulty spikes that makes grinding necessary, which creates a flowing experience. I wouldn't recommend entering Chapter 3 without bamboo gear, but you can finish the game on a grass hull and ore, technically. 1. The score. Probably one of my favourite soundtracks ever. Several of these songs have found their way into my personal Spotify playlists. Xander Hewlin creates the perfect score, and honestly, I don't think any other music would suit the game. 1. World building. While the world building is created through the story murals, the actual world doesn't change vastly throughout each chapter. The world is always built on, but not to an exceptional degree. Forsaken bosses add a lot of building upon characters and history, as does the ending. But again, the physical game world rarely changes past Chapter 2, which limits the overall experience. 0.6. Writing. While there is very limited dialogue, the written direction of the story is well paced, satisfying, and pretty mesmerizing. The ending is honestly worth playing through the entire game and all of its drawbacks. And the enemies and the morals in question create a wonderful story, in a mostly unique style of writing. 0.7. And finally, my personal score. Honestly, I probably could have given this a perfect 1 if it wasn't for the huge letdown again revolved around the achievements. They really soured my experience, and while I refused to allow that to ruin the entire game for myself, it really didn't help. I still loved the story, the visuals, the atmosphere, and above all else, that perfect, beautiful score. 0.8. And to conclude, with my broken and overly complicated ranking standards, this leaves Windbound at an 8.7 out of 15. Above half, but really falling short from a high score. I believe the game has huge strong points, but lacks the dexterity of a jack-of-all-trades game. This is obvious for most indie games, especially when the game is limited by its theme or its resources in development. I loved this game, and I think it really does deserve an above-average rank. I believe Windbound could have done something really special if it had been more tailored as a roguelike, and would suit the complete progress wipe upon death much better. This could have drawn in a wider audience and added a lot more action and combat within the game to appeal to more gamers. I really must implore all of you to check out the game yourself, as my reviews are not meant to deter anyone from playing the game in question, nor act as a substitute for the emotions and discovery that every piece of media can gift you. I thank you all for watching and bid thee a good morning, afternoon, evening and good night whenever you're watching and wherever you're watching from. Be good people, do good things, and once again, yet again, good night and adieu.